Welcome to Relax with Reddit. Today's sub, Ask Reddit. People who have snapped on a bully at school. What's your story? I was about 8 at the time. A group of boys, at school, gathered around me, formed a circle and started pushing me around. I was a reserved and shy kid and this was surprisingly the tipping point for me. I started yelling at each of them and asked them if bullying a defenseless girl made them feel cool. Needless to say, they backed off. I saw one of the boys alone in one of the washrooms, unisex sink area, and for the first time, he said hi and walked off. I'll never forget this day. I had been bullied all year long by this guy and it was the last week of 8th or 9th grade. Comes up to me and says something about my clothes or something and I just saw red. I turned around and hit him with a palm strike to the face. The bottom of my hand connected right under his nose. He doubled over and I bolted. I heard later his lip got stuck in his braces and he had to go to the doctor to fix it. I got a stern talking to about not hitting people, although my teachers were aware of the verbal bullying. The bully would always grab my ass or slap my neck, say rude things about my nationality and insult me. I often told him to stop that, but he never did. For a year and a half. Once, in a lecture, he came to my desk and grabbed my ass. I had a really bad day that day too. The moment he grabbed my ass, I saw red. I was mad. I stood up and looked him in the eye. I took his head and smashed it against the wall with all I had. Nothing serious happened to him, except for the teacher being mad at him for bothering me. I was a quiet and good-hearted kid, and the teacher knew that. For context, I'm 6 feet 5 inches, and have been since high school. There was a girl I was friends with who had a boyfriend. There was nothing going on between us, but her boyfriend was older and used to call me names and throw shit at me in the halls. I'm not a particularly confrontational person, so I'll let it go on like that for a while. There was a day when he knocked my books out of my hand and I had had enough. He wasn't nearly as big as I was, so I picked him up by his shirt and slammed him against a locker. The bullying stopped. I had a bully once when I was at primary school. One day he came with glasses. He insulted me and I snapped, breaking them. 4 years later at 6th grade, don't know the American equivalent, the same shit happened again. I snapped again, and I insulted him. I went to the counselor and had a talk with the director. She said what I did was racist, despite she knowing what he had done to me these past years. This was in 7th grade, I think. I threw a shoe at him in a change room. He was just picking on some random kid and I just had enough of his shit, and I completely missed him and hit the guy that he was picking on right in the face. Everyone froze for a second and then burst out into laughter, and the guy who was being picked on started crying and I felt really bad because I meant to hit the bully. Shoes are hard to throw accurately, okay. I tried to tell him that it was for the bully and I guess I calmed him down a little bit, also by apologizing profusely. After the incident, the mood in the change room was lightened and everyone started being more chill with each other, so I guess it was a success, lol. I was in grade 9, had a French teacher who was a complete pushover. My friend and I were getting paper tossed at the backs of our heads by 3 popular guys plus girls. I told the teacher what was happening. He turns to them, they stop, and he goes on his business. I go back to my seat, infuriated with the zero help I'm getting from the teacher, and, to nobody's surprise, the papers begin to fly once again. So I stand up, knocking my chair back, turn to the teacher, tell him, loudly, I'm going to the principal. Then, after storming to the door, I pause at it, turn to the popular squad and tell them, in front of the whole class who is staring at me, you are not getting away with this. Needless to say, they stopped after that, even though I'm pretty sure the principal did nothing. Goes to show how tough bullies really are. All they want is someone who doesn't fight speak back. This happened in 8th grade. I was bullied from the beginning of 7th grade and one day, I decided to report him. I got bullied for reporting the bully. I got so mad that one day after church I beat him up in the parking lot. I made sure I didn't beat him up enough to have to call an ambulance, but enough to hurt. He didn't mess with me from then onwards. I find it ironic you beat him up after attending church, lol. A group of boys thought it was hilarious to keep our football and stop us from getting it back after it rolled towards them on the school field. They kept passing it between themselves and picking it up and trying to keep it away from us. After trying for about a minute to get the ball from them by running after it, one of them picked the ball up and kept moving it away, trying to keep it out of my reach. I took a few steps back, no longer interested in trying to not hurt them, and did a goal kick on the ball. I kicked his hand in the process and the ball smacked him in the face and gave him a bloody nose. He didn't even try to react, he just turned and walked away with his tail between his legs. I stabbed him in the back of the neck with a pencil. 8th grade. I had been dealing with him whispering insults and ending up with spitballs and snot in my hair. The teacher switched our seating arrangement and I ended up behind him. He called me a stupid bitch and I had it. I got him on the back of the neck with my pencil. So, yeah, honestly no clue where the courage came from. The bullying did stop. In 4th grade, this kid named Nick used to punch me every day at recess. I went home one day crying about it, and my dad told me to punch him back. So the next day when Nick came around to punch me, I whipped around and just beat the snot out of him. Absolutely wailed on him. One of the teachers noticed and took us to the principal's office and we got off with warnings. After that, Nick never punched me again, but would make sure I could get to the front of the line for the drinking fountain and picked me first for any sports game he was team captain for. When I was in the 7th grade, I got a 2-day suspension for fighting. We were playing kickball and this one kid, Alexis, was being a real dick with everyone. He was always an asshole to everyone, but he was being extra mean today, purposely trying to be them as pitcher and running into them trying to knock them over when he was taking a base. I'm playing second base at one point and he runs into me like that, knocks me back. He was pretty fast so it was a hard hit, and I just lost it and got up and started throwing punches. The gym teacher came and broke us up right away and dragged us to the principal's office. The only thing he said to me was, "Man, you hit hard," and then he laughed. I'm lucky that it wasn't now because I would have probably gotten expelled, but I got off with just 2 days of suspension. I explained to my parents why I was fighting and they understood I was just standing up to an asshole. 5th grade. Can't remember what specifically caused me to snap, but after spending the last 5 years being continually harassed, bullied, and assaulted by a specific boy, I'd had enough. I calmly walked to the mounted pencil sharpener at the back of the class and sharpened my pencil to a very fine tip. Then, I walked behind said bully, and in a downward motion slashed him across the entirety of his back in one fluid motion. Obviously, I got a truckload of shit for what I did. Principal insinuated to my mother that the parents of the other boy may want to press charges for my harming of their pride and joy. My mother, bless her heart, retorted back, "If that's the case, perhaps I should press charges considering how often my son has been coming home with cuts, bruises and welts administered at their boys' hands without repercussions from your staff." The principal moonwalked out of that conversation so fucking fast. I still was read the riot act at home, though. Got drilled into me that what I did was use a weapon to harm someone, and that it would never be tolerated at any level. Grounded for a very, very long time. Bully gave me space, for a while anyway. Went back to his usual torment after a couple weeks, minus any physical contact. Not me, but my cousin once finally got sick of a bigger kid who followed him around between school hours and at lunch, and did things like punch him in the ribs when he didn't expect it, knee him in the nuts, and trip him. All done very quickly and efficiently with as little noise as possible. The bully's family was rich enough to make him untouchable and he knew it. Worse, he only picked on about 3 or 4 of the smallest kids he could find, and got excellent grades. One day, as my cousin was using the bathroom between classes, the bully comes in and bashes him headfirst into the wall before turning to walk away. My cousin says, "I'm not afraid of you, you asshole," grabs him by the shoulder, races around him as fast as he can, and punches him dead in the face. The bully didn't even look like he felt it. He beat the shit out of my cousin, and then pissed on him. It got a lot worse from then on out. He eventually had to change schools. Class 11. Cornered by 3 dudes in the school garden. One of them used to be my friend in 10th, but we parted ways on hateful terms due to a stupid fight. Beat all 3 of them, but only enough that they didn't have any serious injuries. Ex-friend confronted me at my house later. We used to live nearby. Another fight. I broke 2 of his teeth with an elbow strike. Fun times. Just goes to show any random fat nerd can be a melee combat junkie. I was about 9 at the time. Kid started kicking my chair from behind and didn't stop when I told him to, so I turned around and told him one last time that if he kicks my chair again I would slap him. He kicked it again and I slapped him to his surprise and followed it up to a few cracks to the nose. Edit. Teacher was on my side. I was 7 and I was a nice kid with average grades, and this one bully that was taller than me. He used to be any typical bully, like trip you on your lunch and push your head for no apparent reason. I was getting annoyed that I felt the red heat go all over my body. I looked at him and told him to stop. I looked at him, he pushes me to the ground. I stop and kicked his tables and punched his nose with all my force. His nose started to bleed and I was sent to the office. My mom had this thing where if they started it then she'll pretend that she's mad at me at school and come home saying congrats. Not at school, but my friend neighbor was screaming and I heard her from across the street, so I ran over. We've all always walked in each other's places BC, we were close, so I opened her door after she was telling her BF to let go of her hair and he grabbed me by my throat and tossed me out of their house. I got up, grabbed an igloo cooler and threw it through his house window. He came outside and I proceeded to wail on him until he was snoring on the ground. I'm not even 5 feet 3 inches 115 pounds and he's a 6 feet guy. I've never knocked anyone out in my life, but I just snapped and went Incredible Hulk on him. I ended up with a broken hand and he ended up with 3 broken windows and a broken face. He had to take off work for 2 weeks, went blind in his eye for a month and the whites of his eye were red for at least a month or 2. It has been a year and my knuckle still has problems, and his eye still looks black. I was getting bullied by a child. I was so angry. When he was beating me up, a teacher came and tried to stop him. In that mess I slapped my teacher's ass and told him the kid who was bullying me did it. He got detention for all year. I guess 4 hours after school. Have you ever snapped on a bully? Comment below with your crazy bullying story. Thank you for relaxing with Reddit. Please like and subscribe.